Welcome to Lesson 6, Painting and Retouching. In this video, I'm going to show you some of the tricks that are covered in our book in Lesson 6 on how to retouch this image. I'm going to go ahead and position the branch over a little bit further so that his nose is not covered, and also remove the blade of grass. First thing I'm going to do is double click on this layer, and I'm going to go ahead and call it Frog Original. And I'm going to keep a copy of this so that I can go back to it later by dragging it down to the dog-eared document and creating a second Frog Original copy. And then I'm turning off the visibility for this bottom one. Now I'm going to crop by pressing C. You can see that my rulers are already visible. If you don't see your rulers, press Control or Command R. With the crop tool, you can not only crop, but you can add canvas area. So I'm just dragging this over a little bit, about 14.5 if you're looking at inches. You can see that up at the top. That's added that canvas area. Now the next thing I want to do is confirm that crop. Take my lasso tool and set up a small feather. Now you can set up feathering or vignetting before or after your selection. I'm just setting it up right now for 2 pixels, and I'm grabbing hold of this branch. And I don't have to do a really excellent selection, but I am going to go all the way around and grab hold of that entire right side. And then I'm going to press Control-Shift-J or Command-Shift-J. And what that does is that lifts that up to a separate layer. And if I press the Move tool, so if I press V, I get the Move tool, shortcut key, I can reposition this over just a little bit. That's good. I'll leave it right there. That's okay if you have extra space. We'll clean that up at the end. Next thing I want to do is create a new layer. So I'm holding down my Alt-Option key and clicking on Create New Layer, and I'm going to call this Black Background. This is going to be my filler for some of the areas that have no pixel information right now. For this, I'm just going to press Shift-Delete and select that I want the contents to be black, 100% normal, and click OK. I'm then going to drag this down to the bottom, and you'll only see that black background in that little section there. Just to make things a little bit easier, I'm going up and I'm naming this layer 1, that is the right side. I'm actually going to call it Right Side so you can see it a little better. We're going to adjust the lighting on this right side a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select black and white as a new fill or adjustment layer. I'm going to choose that I want the high contrast red filter. And then I'm going over to the blending mode and I'm going to select overlay. Notice that the adjustment layer as a default will apply its effects all the way down the stack of layers. I want to darken up the right side a little bit, so I'm going to click on right side and apply an adjustment layer. And this time I'll select curves and I'll just pull this down a bit, and you'll notice again that that's affecting everything. Instead of having everything affected by this curves adjustment layer, I'm going to hold down my Alt-Option key and click between right side and that curves adjustment layer, and you'll see what it does is that it clips to the right side layer. So now only the right side is being affected by that curves panel. I'll pull down the midtone a little bit and even darken it a bit more. Next, I want to soften this a little bit. So I'm clicking on right side and then going down to click on Add a Layer Mask. And you'll see a mask is put down on the right side. It's all white because nothing is being covered right now. If I switch to the brush tool, you'll notice that I can make a nice soft brush, and how I'm doing that is that I'm sizing the brush by pressing the right bracket to the right of the letter P. Right bracket makes the brush bigger. Left bracket makes it smaller. So I get a nice sized brush, and then if I press Shift left bracket, I make my brush softer, or Shift right bracket, it makes the brush harder. You can see this occurring up here in your brush panel. You can see that now that I press Shift left bracket, I have a hardness of 0, and that's what I want. So now I'm painting with the black, and you'll notice that I'm just painting down the edge, and you'll see that a black mark is appearing on that mask. I can even paint at different opacities. So if I press 5, Now I'm only painting 50% so I can fade it in a little bit better, or maybe even 2 for 20%. So I'm just softening up the edge. The nice thing is about using masks, of course, is that if you mess up, you can always press X and paint it back in. I'm also going over to the Frog original copy, adding a mask there, and then I'm softening that mask up as well. So I press X to make sure black is my foreground color, and then I'm just going in and painting this. Now again, I have this at a 20%. I'm going to up it to about a 50% so that I can fill this in a little bit more quickly. I need to replace this guy's little nose. So I'm going to choose File, Open, and open up the file that's called Frog 2. Take his nose, just a really quick selection, copy it, and bring it over to this image. Now you'll notice that because it falls in the stack, it actually is reflecting that black and white adjustment layer. I'm going to switch to the Move tool, position this, and then I'm going to add a mask to this as well, because I want to be able to go in and paint those edges. Now I might need a little bit harder of a brush, so I'm pressing 0 to go back up to 100%, and then pressing Shift right bracket to make a harder brush, and then just the left bracket to make a smaller brush. That way I can come in here and retouch this a little bit better. That still looks a little hard to me, so I'm going to press Shift left bracket a couple times. There, now we've got a much smoother brush. So now we've got his nose in there. Let's go ahead and reposition the layers. I'm going to select the right side, make sure I'm on the Move tool by pressing V, and just slide that layer back in, and then slide the nose up on top of that stack. Now I want to retouch that blade of grass. I'll just start doing that for you so you can see how that's done. I'm selecting the Frog original layer, and I am taking my clone tool, and you'll notice that if I sample by holding down my Alt or Option key a section of the frog, when I come over on top of the blade of grass, you can see that section is being applied, and you even see when you click and start painting, you see a crosshair showing you what you're replacing. Now I'm going to make a little bit bigger of a brush by pressing that right bracket. I'm going to Option click again. If you are cloning correctly, you Option click many times. That way you can't really see a seam. So as I go down here, I might Option click here to replace that section along the side of his head. Up here I want to match this, so I'm Option clicking over here to the left, and maybe even replace it with some of the black. But you can see that as you Option click, you can fix or replace pixels with the pixels that you actually want. So this should be relatively easy down here because this is mostly black. I could probably paint this in a little bit better and a little bit more quickly, or I could fade it by pressing 3 and then painting in just a little bit. I'm going to press 0 to go back up to 100 and finish cloning up here. So you can experiment with your own and replace the pixels in the leg and all the way up through the blade of grass. In this video, you discovered some of the retouching tools that we show you in Lesson 6.